Hmm.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening, Roger.
How are you? Hey, Rod.
Hey, Rob.
Somebody's talking in the tunnel.
It's probably Gwen.
Yeah.
Understand him. All right, guys, we got 7:30. I'm gonna call the September 16th, 2020 regular council meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Amrine,
Here.
Mr. De Leon,
Here.
Mr. Ferrara. I don't see that he's here.
I thought he was calling in. He's in Chicago, I believe.
Mr. Kuhar,
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg. Here. Ms. Schaefer-Bish. Here. Mr. Sidoti,
There.
Mr. Turner,
Here.
and Ms. Wallach.
You're on mute, Tracy. You're muted, Tracy.
Here.
Gwen,
Thank
you're
you.
muted too.
All right. Opening remarks and pledge by Mr. Kuhar.
Okay, I got a couple little things here. 220 has been a very interesting, to say the least, year so far. We start out with a worldwide pandemic that has pretty much changed the life of everybody as we know it. But I think that only working together, we can defeat it. The Black Lives Matter movement, an impressive statement with their protests throughout the country. And I think their message has been heard, and many things are in the making right now, changes. I think it now is time for them to stand down and to work together, and everybody work together for these changes to happen. Unfortunately, we have people who look for a cause to stand behind so that they can spread hatred, create destruction and vandalism, and their actions do not benefit anyone or anything. We must all work together to help stop them, or not to help stop them, to stop them. And I got a couple quick idioms, and they do have some credibility. They go back a way to the authors. One happened to be Julius Caesar, and he created quite an empire because he said his whole philosophy on taking over things was divide and conquer. I want you to think about these three things I'm going to bring up. The second one was kind of an old fella. His name was Aesop. And this goes, I don't know if anybody knows about him, but he was kind of around, the mayor might, in 6 BC.
No, I don't think so.
And he had the same kind of statement. Aesop said, united we stand, divided we fall. That was a little idiom that he put together. And then I don't think anybody said this, but everybody knows it, that freedom is never free. So I'd like you all to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Visible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. We need a motion for the minutes. Approve the minutes of August 19th.
So moved.
Is there a
Second,
second? Who seconded it? John, you seconded it? Is there any question, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain,
Opposed,
abstain.
One abstention. All right, thank you. Under communications, first up is public communications. I need to read my statement. While the law does not require council to provide time for public comment We have historically invited the public to make comments, and we appreciate their input. This is the time when residents and others can comment on matters that concern them. However, we will not engage in any debate. As President Council, I reserve the right to end any public comments that are disruptive, embarrassment, harassed, or otherwise objectionable. We ask that you come to the podium, your computer, and speak into the mic and clearly give your name and address for the record, and we will allot you 3 minutes. With that said, anyone that's going to give public comment for transparency, I would ask you to submit in writing, email the clerk your concerns so we have it publicly record. Amy, who's the first one?
Thank you. We have 4 members of the public that signed up with me prior to the meeting. The first speaker we have is Dr. Geraldine Hayes Nelson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. And I'm coming to this group,
What's your address for the record, please?
my 795 Admore Drive, Kent, Ohio.
All right, thank you, Geraldine. We'll give you your 3 minutes now.
Okay. As I said, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm coming to the group because the time has come, I feel, that where we as a community can join together to continue the path of peace and unity in our beloved community. I'm the president of the Portage County NAACP, but more importantly, I'm a resident of this community. My children have all attended Kent City Schools. They all went on to Kent State University. And I'm proud to say I have 2 granddaughters who are currently attending Kent City Schools. I have seen our community as it has faced many different challenges related to racism and inclusiveness. Our challenges are no different than those that are faced on a national level or by other communities of our size. But one thing that is significant is the rich diversity that is here in the city of Kent. And for me, that is part of the fabric of our community. We've come a long way, but I still feel that there's work that yet remains to be done. And I'm proposing that the time has come that we move the needle to the next level. The Portage County NAACP has been in this community for a long time. We're a vital stakeholder in this community, as well as the oldest civil rights organization in the nation. And so with that in mind, we want to partner with the city and its leadership in continuing to promote unity and respect within our community. We must recognize and dismantle within ourselves our own unconscious biases that may exist, any preconceived perception that exists within ourselves and within our community. I think together we can begin to dismantle some of the falsehoods, at least some of the racism that exists, and work towards dismantling the walls of hatred. Together as a community, we can say proudly, not in our town. Will there be room for the exception? That there will never be any room for the exception or the acceptance of any type of hate speech, discrimination, bullying, and any mode of unacceptance. I believe working together, we can build a city where the cycles and systems that oppress and discriminate against others will not be tolerated. Making this commitment towards equity and anti-racism involves a shift in thinking, changes in practices, and removing and looking at our policies and systems that may create barriers. Today, I'm proud to say we have a vibrant and thriving city. Our challenge is to build and continue to build and look to the future for our children and our children's children. We must continue to, in this struggle, to address freedom, tolerance, and civility. And I believe as a citizen of Kent and of this community that we owe it to our children to continue to provide a caring city where they feel proud to be part of a multicultural community, a place where they can grow and become adults who are open-minded, caring, collaborative, and productive citizens with a pride and love for their community.
Hey, you got a half a minute.
That's okay, I'm at the end. I asked if not now, then when. And I think it's time for us to make, if I could quote, I'm never afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, but make sure that it's good, necessary trouble. And I've worked with many of you, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Next, Amy.
Okay, next up, we have Reverend Christy Anderson.
Name and address for the record, Chrissy, and you'll have 3 minutes. You
And you
must-
want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay, I
Name and
apologize.
address.
Christy Anderson, 1530 South Boulevard, Kent, Ohio.
Okay, go.
I am representing this evening the Kent Interfaith Alliance for Racial Reconciliation and Justice, known as KIFA. I'm here to urge you to develop a strategy that will prevent and minimize harm caused by expressions and acts of hate and intolerance. Kent is certainly not immune to hate crimes. You may recall that the Islamic place of worship on Lake Street was vandalized. Several years ago, Spelman AME Chapel, home to a predominantly Black congregation, was desecrated by graffiti. In both cases, some people in the community stepped up and demonstrated their support for these two congregations. But I believe that we can respond to acts of hate more effectively by being proactive. This was exemplified by the city of Dayton in 2019, when a Ku Klux Klan group announced their intent to hold a rally in downtown Dayton. Think about that. How would we in Kent respond to something similar? Dayton city leaders organized public meetings inviting citizens to offer their thoughts on how best to respond. There was disagreement, especially between white and Black residents. Professional mediators facilitated additional meetings, resulting in a strategy that satisfied residents, city leaders, and the police. Dayton residents demonstrated such a strong buy-in to the plan, and it received so much news attention that the Ku Klux Klan canceled their event. I'm suggesting that Kent prepare intentional strategies for responding to different types of incidents of hate, strategies that go beyond the use of law enforcement. We can be a proactive community that visibly shows we will not tolerate hate. For example, the bars downtown could have signs in their windows that say, "No shirt, no shoes, no hate." Or similar to neighborhood crime watch signs, neighborhood groups could post signs that state, "This is a hate watch neighborhood." City leaders should have at their fingertips a phone number list for clergy, mediators, mental health counselors, NAACP leaders who have pledged their willingness to help with community healing or calling for calm when there's unrest. I'm calling on you to consider our many community assets that can complement the work of law enforcement. I recommend that under the guidance of the city, a campaign be initiated as soon as possible to craft ways to be visible and strategic in stating that the residents of Kent will not tolerate expressions of hate. I know we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Next. Amy.
Our next speaker is Mr. Chris Myers. And Mr. Myers, you'll want to unmute yourself.
Am I
There you go.
unmuted?
You're on,
Yes.
Chris. Name
Okay.
and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Christopher Marion Myers, 220 East Elm Street, Kent.
Go ahead.
Go.
Okay. It's very interesting that the rallies that have been going on, the Black Lives Matter rallies up at Kent State University, and they've been pretty peaceful as far as I can see, but I see in the paper that there was some unrest up there when some council people from Kent went up there and made some comments. And I'd like to know what the heck those comments might have been that it caused unrest, because, you know, if you're a council person, you know, are you speaking for yourself? You can be construed as speaking for the city. So I have a little problem with that. And I would like to know what the heck might have been said. And I also think that it's time to unwind all those protests, and maybe take a look at the hatred in inner city Akron, the hatred of blacks for other blacks, and the shootings. I am distraught every time I see in the Beacon Journal a photo of a mother who's lost a child or a baby. And why can't the people go to Akron and help the police to clean up those streets over there, so that the children growing up over there can have a chance? And that's about all I have to say. There's a lot of bright people up there on campus protesting, but it's about more than Kent State. It's about the inner cities that are creating all this baloney so kids can't grow up in a healthy environment. And it's just sickening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Further, Amy?
Our last speaker is Miss Reverend Renee Rahutsky.
Hello, members of the Kent City Council and the Kent community.
Name and address, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Renee Rahutsky. I live at 237 Highland Avenue in Kent, Ohio.
Okay, thank you.
NEERUCHOTZKE. I've lived in Kent since 1985, 35 years. I've worked here, raised my children here, and have served in the leadership of many different initiatives and organizations to help Kent be a model community. My spouse and I joyfully pay taxes on our incomes and on both our home and our adjacent rental property. We are landlords who are invested in our neighborhood and are intentionally inclusive of economic and racial diversity when considering tenants. I currently serve on the city's Sustainability Commission. Currently, I also serve as president of the Kent Environmental Council and serve on the board of the League of Women Voters. I'm also active with the Portage County NAACP and the Allies for Racial Justice in Portage County. Whenever the call of justice beckons me, I have shown up to city council meetings to participate in our beloved democracy. Today, I am here to witness to our city's need to respond to today's call for racial justice. As someone who sits on a city commission that was initiated by the community activism, the Kent Environmental Council, I implore that you heed the call of the current moment and that you create the necessary commissions and task forces that will be needed to address the ways that our very institutions reinforce systems of oppression and racism. I heard the words earlier this evening of Councilman Kuhar to ask people like me to stand down. I personally find this request to be insulting, as if the concerns of some of us engaged members of the community should be dismissed without consideration because our concerns are inconvenient. I use the words of institutional and systemic racism, which may seem haughty and easy to dismiss, but they are showing up in the lived experiences of our beloved Black siblings and our Indigenous siblings and siblings of color. There are stories of hurt, betrayal, and diminishment that permeate the experiences of so many members of our community. We owe it to them to hear those stories and provide a path to healing and restoration. I implore you, my beloved City Council members and friends, to create systems that will create healing in our community. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's no more, Amy?
That is all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Written communications, Amy?
The Records Commission meeting agenda for September 3rd, 2020 was received on August 28th. Notification the meeting was rescheduled for September 24th, 2020 was received on September 8th, 2020. Standing Rock meeting minutes for August 13th were received on August 24th. The Planning Commission agenda for September 15th was received on September 8th. The Architectural Review Board meeting agenda for September 15th was received on September 8th, 2020. The Board of Health minutes and statistical report from August 2020 and the agenda for September 8th were received on September 8th, 2020. And then communication received after the agenda was published. I received a letter from Mrs. Debbie Berry of 1002 Lake Street, Kent, Ohio, regarding the building of the new City Hall. And that was received on September 11th, 2020. The Parks and Recreation Board packet for the September 17th meeting was received on September 11th. And the notification of Community Development's 9th work session for the city's zoning code update that was scheduled for September 15th was received on September 11th as well. That is all.
Okay, thank you. City manager report, Jack?
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 13 on the city manager's report.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Is there further, Mr. Orr? Okay. And getting the standing committee reports, committee of the whole, I need a motion for the committee meeting minutes of September 2nd.
So move.
Second.
Okay, Robin made the motion, Mike seconded it. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention. Anybody opposed? All right. I need a motion for the two actions
So moved.
by Jack,
Second.
second by who? Roger.
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 Is there any discussion on the actions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-89 in title only?
Draft 2020-89, an ordinance amending, enacting certain sections of the codified ordinances and standing rules regarding boards and commissions and declaring an emergency.
Call the roll for suspension.
Move suspension.
We need a motion
Second.
first.
I'm
Second.
sorry.
And Mr. De Leon and Mr. Kuhar second.
Yeah.
Okay, and the roll, Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
She's frozen again.
okay, Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
and Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Okay,
Move
suspension pass.
Move adoption.
Second again.
Second.
Second by John Kuhar. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Shake your head yes, Gwen.
okay, I got her, she said yes. Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
and Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Okay, 2020-89 has passed.
Hey, thank you. That's all there is for the committee of the whole, community development. Mr. Kuhar, I need a motion for the minute.
Okay, I would move the minutes and approvals for September 2nd and the one action.
Split those, please.
Split those? There's only one, okay.
Move the minutes.
Split the minutes and the action.
Minutes. Quit talking, approve the minutes.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor of the adopting the minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
One abstention. That passes.
Okay,
On to action now.
now the one action.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on the action? Seeing none, all in fa-
I have a discussion. I have a discussion.
all right, Heidi.
Yeah. I think it's really important that the city have representation on this board. Maybe, I hope this isn't definitive that there's no additional representation. I hope we're voting to just assure that the city has representation on the board rather than the specifics of the representation. Are you following that?
It's in the minutes. We do have representation on that board.
That's what.
Right, right. I'm voting for the representation of the city on this very important board.
All right, I
So,
understand that.
okay.
Any more discussion? Gwen, do you have your hand up? Are you froze?
She's frozen.
All right. Tracy, do you have something to say?
Nope.
All right, well, you lit up here. All right, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. With the clerk read draft number 2020-090 in title only.
Draft number 2029-90, an ordinance approving the city's participation on the Board of Trustees for the Hometown Foundation and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Who seconded that? Mike?
I did. Garrett.
All right, call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Excuse me. Sorry.
Ms. Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by John. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor? No. Let's call roll call for adoption.
Okay, Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg? Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-90 has passed.
And with
Okay,
that, I
all the
end the
business-
community development.
Go ahead. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes from September 2nd.
Second.
Second by Mr. Delone. Is there any discussion?
Yes, can you separate those, please?
I did.
He did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Anybody else? All in favor of the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed, same-
Abstain.
No abstentions, one abstention, okay.
Okay, I'd like to move that the action that's listed.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on the action? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same
No.
sign.
No.
2 noes. All right. It still passes. All right, with the clerk read draft number 2020-91 in title only.
Draft number 2020-91, an ordinance amending ordinance 2010-70, authorizing the city manager or his designee to change the license from RPS 1 LLC, doing business as Cajun Dave's, to Mike Beater and Water Street Tavern, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Jack. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg? Ms. Schaefer Bish?
No.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
No.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
And Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Need a motion for adoption.
Move
So-
adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adoption? Tracy,
Yeah, I'm gonna vote against this because the last time we had a smoker downtown at that spot, it caused a lot of problems and a lot of businesses were not happy with the residue from the smoke or anything. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem if it was gonna go to a different position, but the position that it's gonna go into, I am opposed to, and so therefore I will oppose the transfer of the license also.
okay, thank you. Heidi,
Yeah, same thing. There are so many people that share the downtown. It is really a small space and that smoke goes everywhere. And I'm not really looking forward to the complaints that I'm going to be receiving from residents who can no longer open their windows. And also some of the businesses that are afraid that that smoke is damaging their businesses' facades. So I think that, you know, when you outweigh, you know, the interests of one who I really care about, because I think it's a wonderful business, against the many, I think I'm going to have to vote no at this time.
okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Mr. Kuhar?
Me too,
Me too, what?
what they said.
All right, fine. Is there anybody else? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
No,
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
No,
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
No,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
and Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Is
Okay,
that six
that-
votes,
We have
Amy?
6 votes, yes.
All right.
So
we got
ordinance
3 barks too, don't those count?
Ordinance 2020-91 is passed.
Okay, thank you. That's it for streets and sidewalks. There's nothing under land use, nothing under health.
There's one draft.
There's one draft, but there's no minutes or no recommendation. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-92 in title only?
Draft number 2020-92, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an agreement with Kent State University so as to provide for the mutual assistance, interchange, and use of police personnel and equipment from September 23rd, 2020 until terminated by either party and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes,
Ms. Rosenberg? We don't have Gwen. We lost Gwen.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Ms. Schaefer Bish,
yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Need a motion for adoption.
move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any question on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes,
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
I thought I heard a yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
okay, Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-92 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
I'd like to move the minutes of September 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Second by Roger. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 abstain,
Opposed? One
Abstain.
abstention.
I'd like to move the action recommended.
second,
Second by Roger. Is there any discussion on the action?
oh, I have a question.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Are these gun locks special to police weapons, or because I noticed when I went into the police station the other day, the box that usually has gun locks for the residents is empty.
Same, not the same.
So do we fill that up? I mean, that's my question.
I think they fill it up when they need to. Mike, do you have your hand up?
I think it was gun locks that were lock the shotguns into the cruisers, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
So-
so there's special gun locks. Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking of the box in the lobby. That's for handguns.
Okay. Because it's empty.
If that's empty, they'll fill it up.
Okay.
All right. Did we take a vote on that or
No, Not yet. No.
all in favor signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-93 in title only?
Draft number 2020-93, an ordinance authorizing the city of Kent to submit a funding application totaling $612,000 and to execute subsequent agreements with the Ohio Department of Transportation's Municipal Bridge Program and to accept the grant if awarded with the corresponding appropriation of funds for the Sunrise Drive Bridge over Fish Creek and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension. Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg? Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-93 is passed.
Hey, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-94 in title only?
Draft number 2020-94, an ordinance requesting a donation of 2 gun locks to the Mogador Police Department from the Kent Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by John. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg?
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg? Okay, ordinance 2020-94 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-95 in title only?
Draft number 2020-95, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg? And Ms. Schaefer Bish?
Yes.
Move adoption? Did we do that yet?
Yeah. Garrett seconded. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
yes,
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-95 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-96 in title only?
Draft number 2020-96, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $100 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department towards the purchase of a memorial tree in the memory of Mary Helen Nutzel and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
yes,
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Need a motion for adoption.
Move adoption.
option,
Second by Don Kerr. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
yes,
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer Bish,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-96 has passed.
Okay, thank you. That's all the business with committees. We're under unfinished business. Is there any? New business? Is there any new business? Tracy?
yeah, I would like to put into the appropriate committee a discussion of forming a new commission, a new city commission that has to deal with proactively dealing with racism, hatred, and diversity.
Second.
Second by Mike. Tracy, further discussion?
Yeah, I think the two residents brought up good points. We need to have a plan in place to deal with things when they turn up. And I think having a commission on that, and we could also then have the commission come up with ideas about diversity, because that's a real thing that we've been struggling with for years and years and years. How do we get more diverse in our city government?
Mike, you seconded. Is there any more?
No, that's all. It's very good.
Anybody else have discussion? Heidi?
Yes. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate what you brought up, and you know, we're going to bring it to committee, and I think at committee we can have a further discussion on this. So I want to assure people that this is a way of not pushing too fast. I think that this is also a really this is timely. So I kind of vacillate between, do we move fast on this or do we take a measured approach? And I think we need to take a little bit of both. You know, certainly all of us want to see Kent be the most welcoming city that we can be, and to have some action items that might actually create more of that welcoming feel. So I'm going to wholeheartedly support this future discussion, hopefully soon, because of the timeliness of it. And, you know, really what Tracy brought up is to bring it to a committee so that we can have a further discussion on it and decide whether this is something that we want to invite particular members of the community to have the discussion and bring forward action items for council to consider in making our community a more welcoming and less divisive and community. So I'm in full support.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Burr.
I'm going to vote to oppose the motion. I think, you know, when you focus on race, race becomes an issue. I think Kent has proven time and time again that we are an inclusive, caring community. And I think this just serves to create more divisiveness between the races. And I think our city and our university and our school system has always been an inclusive place. And we continue to be. And I'd rather focus on individual instances of racism. I don't think it's systemic at our anywhere in Kent administration, Kent City Schools, or even Kent State for that matter. So I think this is an issue that is only relevant because of the issues going on right now around, and it's a knee-jerk reaction to the protests and the public protests and riots that are happening out there. And I think we're just looking to create a bigger problem when we're already that community. And if there's an instance, an individual instance of discrimination or racism, we're going to deal with it in the most appropriate way. But at the end of the day, the city and our city council has proven and shown that we are an inclusive and caring society. So I think this just becomes a something to just appease people for a feel-good type committee. And I don't see any. We've got bigger things to discuss than this, is my opinion. So, not that it's not important. It is important. It's extremely important. So,
Mayor.
Wait, I think John, did you have your hand up? Never mind.
Robin wants to speak.
Yeah,
I'm talking, Heidi. Robin.
Yeah, Mayor, I support the motion. I believe not acknowledging that something exists does not mean it doesn't exist. I think we have an opportunity to educate ourselves. I agree with Garrett on a lot of aspects. I think that we are not the same city as Los Angeles or St. Paul or Minneapolis, but there are issues out there that maybe we need to address. By putting this into committee, what we're going to be able to do is educate ourselves about what our needs and deficiencies may be as a community. That doesn't make Kent a bad community. That doesn't necessarily create fissures in the community. There are fissures that exist. I mean, the issue of what was stated on the rock, while that doesn't overwhelm me because you can't change people's hearts in that regard, you can work to establish a better system that is more inclusive and fair to all citizens of the city of Kent. That is something we need to address. Acting as though it doesn't exist or pulling the covers up over our head or just whistling past the graveyard doesn't change the reality that there is something there. We need to move toward addressing that. And we furthermore need to move toward the discussion. If there is nothing there ultimately, which I would pray there wouldn't be, but I, as a Black man in society in the city of Kent, know that there are some issues there. And so I respect Garrett's position. I respect John's position on some aspects, but we need to move forward and start dealing with this and confronting. And I think putting this into committee for discussion, we're not laying down any hard and true positions and facts. What we're doing right now is acknowledging that there are issues in society that perhaps we need to take up. So I will support that wholeheartedly.
Roger.
Yeah, I don't mind putting it in the committee. I'd like to remind everyone that we had a similar discussion 3.5 years ago when we started talking about the compassionate city, when we started talking about working with our community. We have something called Heart and Soul. That's been 3.5 years of of work, and we're no closer to having real, honest conversations about everyone in the community, regardless of how everyone feels. I agree in some ways with both John and Garrett on some issues, but the fact of the matter is I've had other conversations that lead me to understand that there are issues in our community that we've really not gotten to. And it's kind of frustrating for me, after 3.5 years, we haven't got to a conversation, and we haven't had almost a coming from the community itself saying it's time to have real conversations. So I don't mind talking about it in committee. I'm not sure where we'll go with it, but I think it belongs in committee. I think that's before we knee jerk and we look at any kind of legislation, but I think we owe it to our community to at least have this conversation and then see where it goes. But I want to remind, Heart and Soul is sitting out there, and we're so much involved in process, but we're not much involved in actually getting down to the nitty gritty of what can we do? What can we do to even make it more of a welcoming city? So I'm going to vote yes for it to get it in committee.
Well said, Roger. John, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I really had it up this time.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion in committee. I think Kent's a great place to live, and I see racism from Black people. I see racism from white people. And it's every time that we notice that a person is not the same as we are, we're showing some signs of racism. We need to get rid of hatred. We need to get to a point where a person's a person, not a Black person, not a white person, not an Indian. And when we're at that point, we're a lot closer to having a world that, we'd like to live in. And so I'm open for supporting the committee.
Okay, is there anybody else? Mr. Ferrer, this is the second time around.
Yep, I just, Robin had brought up some great points, and he's spot on, and well, I'm not so sure I support a committee. You're right, it should be discussed. So I will vote in favor to discuss it in committee at that point in time. Thanks, Robin. I appreciate that, your comments.
Anybody else?
Very well.
Does anybody need the motion read over again? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Is there any other new business? Councilman comments, anything?
Gwen
Yes,
has.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. Mike has his hand up first.
Just want to remind everybody that there's still an evaluation out there that I need to get. And what's the date today?
Is that it?
Yeah, that's mine, Mike.
Yes, I have a few. So thank you. That's
Robin,
Mike, you got mine, right?
Robin, you're next.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to respond actually to Mr. Meyer's comment. I was one of the 3 council people at the ceremony regarding the rock on Kent State campus. I think that there's a misunderstanding about what transpired. I had not read the article in the newspaper. Understand that we had 3 council people who went there to support the students and let them know that this is a welcoming community. We didn't go there to discuss public policy. We were totally unprepared for that. The students viewed it somewhat differently. They were very spirited, and they reacted to us not having established policies regarding an issue which, quite frankly, we did not have authority to address. That was beyond our scope. That was an issue that related to campus policy. We and Gwen and Roger both stated, I was there. Roger was eloquent in his statement regarding the welcoming of the students and how we supported them in that regard. And Gwen gave them her information so that we could have further discussion. We need to be educated on the matter. We did not misspeak, and there was no issue of us speaking out of turn and representing the city as a council. We were there as individuals, and we did, I think, an appropriate way of representing ourselves as individuals and this community. I think it's unfortunate that perhaps it was portrayed another way. I can't speak to that, but I'm very proud of my fellow council people. I'm very proud of the job that we have done as a city council and an administration. We have a lot more work to do. That's understood, but we need to be educated about a process. It's a process. We're not at an end result. We are going to view, and most of us have viewed this as an opportunity to move our community forward and an opportunity to make positive change. And hopefully we will continue to move in that direction. So, Mr. Myers, I just want you to know that. I respect your opinion. I respect that you want to see change. I might view change differently than you. But the bottom line is that is what actually occurred during that event. And I think you have a right to know as a citizen. And I think that you would have been proud of the way that your city represented you at that occurrence. So thank you, Mayor.
Roger?
Yeah, I'd like to add just a couple things. First and foremost, many of the people who were there, many of the young people there were former students of Theodore Roosevelt High School. And interestingly enough, Mr. Myers, I have heard from a number of those people who were there that could not believe what they read in the paper, that city council people created an issue. Our goal was simply, my reason for being there, and I talked to both Robin and Gwen when they were led to believe that we were there to say anything. We really said three basic messages. The first message was we were there just to observe. The second message was to learn and try to understand where the students were coming from. And the third message was they are welcome in the city of Kent. As a matter of fact, I even added the issue that they are welcome to come into town, and we hope that they will continue to wear their masks. They all were wearing masks. They were all they were very well behaved. Part of the issue is there were many young people there, a lot of freshmen there, and young people sometimes get over exuberant, and sometimes they make demands on you. And quite candidly, for me, it didn't, it wasn't intimidating or anything. It was fine. It's just how they are, and we did our best to make it clear to them. We weren't there representing our city council. We were there as well as citizens, and we were there just in interest. I think it's real important that we send a powerful message to those students that they are welcome in this community, and we had an opportunity to do it. So that's what we did. So, Mr. Myers, I know that what they said in the paper, I kind of chuckled when I read that, because if there were any issues, it wasn't raised by the three council people. I can assure you of that.
Thank you, Roger. Anybody else? I guess we're under mayor's report. Good thing I have to say today, and thank you to our clerk, Amy, to put together a proclamation for Chance Kylo and Zach Brown, who on August 26th, 2020, alluded to their family to a fire in the University Inn and got them out. We went up to St. Patrick's School, and I did it Washington style. I got a desk out and I put the proclamations down and I signed them with a pen, and I gave them the pen and a proclamation. So we had two heroes in the city of Kent that reflected for what they did in August 26th. So that was a good thing. With nothing else said, Tracy, unmute yourself.
I just wanted to say happy 1-year anniversary, Amy.
Oh,
Second.
all right.
Thank you so much. It's been a great year.
Congratulations, Abe.
Thanks.
You all could support that very much if you just got your paperwork back to Mike.
Thank you.
You did.
Done.
All
All
right.
right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, Heidi,
Have a nice night, everyone, and have a good
got an
weekend.
electric car.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Heidi,